Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me this fine sunny day in Rome. My name is Chris Calcutt, and I'm the product specialist for the Focusrite Group. And Focusrite obviously make audio interfaces and also is the home of Novation synthesizers and Novation products. But in more recent years, we've also joined forces with Sequential and most recently with Oberheim. And this presentation will be all about the wonderful TEO-5 polyphonic synthesizer that I have here in front of me. This is the latest synth from Oberheim. This was announced at Super Booth in Berlin this May, and is really a very modern take on the Oberheim sound. Now, I should mention a little bit about Tom Oberheim, of course, because Tom Oberheim is an absolute legend in the synthesizer world. He started making his products back in 1969. So I think it's very true to say that, Tom Oberheim was there at the very, very beginning of commercially available synthesizers. His first product was a ring modulator that he designed and was used on the Planet of the Apes, I think the first Planet of the Apes film, back in 1969. And then moving into 1974, he developed his first synthesizer, the SEM, Synthesizer Expander Module. The Synthesizer Expander Module is a classic synth. It was monophonic, it had one note, it could play one note, but it had a very particular sound. And this is the sound that has really become famous, really, with the Oberheim sound, and that is the use of what we now call the SEM filter. The filter that Tom Oberheim designed and built for that SEM synthesizer. Now, of course, it's 2024 today, so we don't have to just stick with one note. We have a polyphonic system. And if we listen to this, this is a very, very Oberheim kind of sound. And we can hear that very smooth kind of typical Oberheim polyphonic sound. And really, it's all about this filter. So what is the TEO-5? Well, as I say, it's a very modern take on the Oberheim, and it's basically an analog 5-voice polyphonic synthesizer. We have two oscillators sitting here, analog oscillators, VCOs. We have the SEM filter here, which is an interesting filter. We'll explain a bit about this filter in a moment. So the generation, the sound generation here is all analog. And then we have some digital controls, digital effects as well. We've got a powerful sequencer and powerful arpeggiator. Now you can see on the top panel, I've got everything that I want. So if I move to a basic program, let's just get a little bit more volume to this. So this is the basic starting point, and this is just using the sawtooth waveform from oscillator 1. And I have a frequency control here, of course. And I have a choice of different oscillator types here. We've actually got 3 different analog oscillators. So here is the sawtooth. We have a square wave. And we also have a triangle. So we've got a nice choice of oscillators there, but of course I can combine these as well. So this is the raw sound. Now we have 2 oscillators, so let's switch to sawtooth. And here I'll just switch in the second oscillator, detune that a little bit. And already we can hear that nice thick analog sound generated by these VCOs. Just detune that a little bit. So a very rich sound already with no real kind of sound manipulation at all, just listening to those raw oscillators. Now, of course, if we go back to oscillator 1 here, we've also got the square wave with pulse width. And that goes all the way to closing. So obviously I can modulate this. I can make that pulse width control move around. And this is, I think, a very clever feature that we have on the TEO-5. We've got our LFO section up here. We'll talk about how many controls we have in a moment, but just to show you, we've got this button, which is labeled destination. And I can just simply press this button, move the pulse width control, and now add an amount of this control. So very quick and easy to make these modulation routings. Now, of course, I mentioned at the beginning, the Oberheim sound is very much featuring the filter, the SEM filter. And this filter section in the middle here gives me three major controls. We have our filter cutoff. So let's just go back to the basic sound. Yep, there we go. So here we have the low pass, typical low pass sound. But what's interesting here is we also have this state variable filter. Now, state variable means that we can move through a low pass, typically letting the low frequencies pass through to what we call a notch filter. And now we get some really nice phaser style filtering effects. And then we can move through to the high pass filter. So we've got a lot of controls over the sound using the state variable filter here. Now, at the minute, we have low pass, notch, and high pass. But if I wanted to, I can also go into an extra menu here and find the band pass control. And now we can see this little light comes on and we now have a bandpass style filter. Now, the SEM filter is a two-pole, 12 dB per octave cutoff. And this means it's quite different from the types of filters you would find on a Moog or even a Prophet 5 or any of the sequential synthesizers. It's a very gentle sounding filter at low pass until we bring in the resonance. And the resonance is really kind of the very special source for the SEM filter. So here is with half resonance. We can hear a little bit more emphasis at the cutoff point, but as I increase the resonance to full, this is where it gets very interesting. Now, unlike a lot of filters, this will not self-resonate, so I can't switch off the oscillators and hear the filter. It won't do that. But what it does have is this lovely sound in there. Now, if I just find, where is my, here we go. This is a very famous example of that SEM filter in use. So you can hear the filter there moving through the sound and giving this really very broad and bright sound. It's a very typical SEM sound. It's got a nice flavor to it. So let's have a listen to some of the presets on here. We've listened to this one just before. This is a very typical Oberheim pad sound. And we've got a lot of these kind of typical sounds. So here's another nice Oberheim pad. With nice portamento. Maybe another one here as well. We can go into the kind of the usual kind of. Now I can't play this, but I won't try to play it. I can't do it. But then we go into some very modern places as well. So this has a very modern sound to it. And then we can go into nice places as well, like maybe some arpeggiation stuff with... I'll hold this on. So we have a very broad range of polyphonic style sounds in here. Now let's just take a think about what we've got on the top panel. We've looked at the oscillators, we've looked at the filter here as well, but of course we've got our various different modulation sources. So again, if we go to a basic program, let's bring that up. We have a bit of feedback on the mic, yeah? A little bit of compression killing the... Okay, so we've got our envelopes over here. Now we have two envelopes available to us. We have one which is usually controlling the filter. And we have one for the amplifier as well. So let's just bring in a bit more release there. So we've got our envelopes on this side to allow us to control and shape the sound. But then up here we have two LFOs as well. We have two types of LFOs. One is a monophonic LFO and one is a polyphonic LFO. Let me see if I can demonstrate this. So if I take the mono LFO to the filter and I will choose a square wave for this, and let's bring in an amount. So you can hear that's opening and closing the filter, and if I play a chord here, we can hear that just triggering the filter at the same time. It's a monophonic LFO. But then we've also got our polyphonic LFOs as well, so let's add polyphonic LFO to the cutoff 2 now, and we'll switch that to a square as well, and bring that to a similar speed. Now if I play different notes, you can hear we have different LFOs controlling the filters. It's a little bit like a delay. So that we've got one LFO for mono duties. And we have a second LFO for polyphonic duties, which is nice to play around with. So those are our main kind of modulation controls. Let's bring up another sound here. Let's go for landing pad. I do like this one. And this is making good use of the effects that we have here as well. So if I, let's again go back to a basic patch. There we go. Maybe just bring in a bit of reverb. So we have a dedicated reverb here. Really lovely long reverb there with some nice controls for it. But we also have another set of effects here, and these effects are multi-effects, so we can go from delays so we've got a delay there, we've got bucket brigade delays as well. We've got different tape delays as well. And of course, all of this can be modulated as well. So if I go back to the Bucket Brigade, take the mono LFO and connect it to the FX time, add an amount there. So we can do some really interesting things here. Alongside all of this, we've also got, let's take the amount down, we've also got a distortion. Whoop, pardon me, there it is. A ring mod, which I think is really interesting. Which we can use to great effect, and all the way through to a lo-fi sound as well. And the lo-fi sound I think is really lovely here. So let me record a sequence. I'll just hit the record button and... And the lo-fi gives you this really nice tape-based style effects. So you've got a lot of things to play around with on here. Now, once again, there is another little bit of a secret sauce in here. So let's see if I can find it. I've got a patch. Yeah, this is the one. We've also got this pot here. This is called cross mod or X mod. And basically what this is doing is giving FM between the two oscillators. This is a typical thing that you would have found on an old Oberheim, and indeed as well on sequential synthesizers such as the Prophet 5 and all of the modern takes as well there. And cross mod is usually using FM from one oscillator to the next to give you this nice kind of frequency modulated style sound. Now on the Prophet 5, on the OBX8 and all the kind of the originals, this was using a thing called exponential FM. Now, if you're interested in frequency modulation synthesis, there are actually three types of FM: exponential, linear, and linear through zero. Exponential is just taking the two oscillators and modulating one from the other. But this is exponential. It follows a curve, a very steep curve. And this gives us a very inharmonic kind of sound. So here, very basic triangle waveform, and this I've attached oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. And if you listen to this now, this is quite out of tune and otherworldly sort of sound, and this is exponential FM. But we also have a dedicated knob on the top panel here called cross mod, and this is actually using through zero FM. Through zero FM allows the oscillators to go below a 0 point and basically allows things to stay in tune. So if we listen to exponential once again, and then we listen to through zero, it's much more musical and stays in tune. Now, as I overdrive the cross mod, you can go into crazy places as well, of course. But generally, this is nicely in tune now. And if I change the frequency, and listen to exponential again, it's out of tune. So this is a really lovely feature, and we've never seen this on an Oberheim instrument before. So we've got all of this great stuff on the top panel. We're not really going into any menus at this point. Everything that I've got here is directly under my hands. But we've got a lot more stuff in here as well. For example, this section here is the modulation matrix. And the mod matrix basically allows me to connect various different things to a bit like a modular synth, basically. We've got a whole world of modular synthesizers over there. It lets me take a source and then plug that into a destination. So for example, if I go into my source page here, I've got a whole load of different things. So pressure, aftertouch, velocity, note number. I can take the output of the filter to control things, audio out. I've got a lot of various things here, including things, for example, like I can take oscillator 2 and set that to the filter. And now if I add an amount of this, we're now getting frequency modulation of the filter itself. So there's a lot of scope for doing this kind of stuff. Let's take a listen to some more patches now. So if I go to, this patch here, of course, we've heard many times, and it's a very kind of typical Oberheim patch. But because of all the modulation possibilities that we've got here, we can go into some really experimental places. Excuse me. I've created a couple of what I would call Krell patches here. These are they're almost sentient types of patches. But if I just press a single note here, so this is doing its own thing and basically using all the modulation there to go into different places. Let's try this one out. So we can go from some pretty typical nice pad sounds through to essentially stuff that you would sort of find on a modular synth as well. So what else do we have here as well? Let's, we've got the sequencer. The sequencer is a really lovely thing. So with the inbuilt sequencer here, I can create a 64-step sequence, and of course it's all polyphonic as well. In this instance, I'm using it for a bass sound. And to record this, very straightforward. I hit record and then we can see the steps increasing here. And now when I hit play, and I can transpose this by holding record. So the sequence is really lovely, but as I say, it's polyphonic as well. So if we find a different kind of sound, maybe this one. Let's go to bank 2. Over here, TO keys. So I can hit record. So very nice that we're able to just create sequences directly on the unit as well. And of course, this frees my hands to be able to kind of so we've got a lot of power available to us here. Now, a quick note on the keyboard as well. The keyboard is a kind of a custom size. It's 44 notes. Often you'll find 37 notes on a synth or 49 notes, But on this particular unit, we have 44 notes. So it's 3.5 octaves available. And of course, that makes it quite portable and quite a light piece to carry around. It's great for gigging with and that sort of thing. But you might think, well, how do I extend the way that I can play? So if I, let's find again, we'll go for the TO key sound. Pretty basic sound. Bit of overdrive on there. I have this switch here, which is a low split. This allows me to change the octave, put the octave lower and the lower half of the keyboard. So if I go to -1 octave, and we take it off, and I can go to 2 octaves below. So this extends the playing range that I have on the key mechanism here, and just means that I've got even more scope for playing. So let's, I'll find a different sound now. Let's go for, what will we go for? Star crystals. Not that one. Let's bring that up an octave and then put that an octave lower. Or even 2 octaves lower. So we've got a lot of scope for being able to play. We also have a unison mode on here. Let me see if I can find a nice sound for unison. And with the unison, actually we'll go for a basic program again. I'll just quickly get a little sound on here. We've got, 4 minutes, yeah, okay. And get that up, okay. So we've got a basic sound there. We'll just add a bit of overdrive. Now if I press the unison button, it is now no longer a polyphonic synth, it's a mono synth. But if I hold unison down, and then I can increase the number of voices. So we can actually move to 5 voices. To give a very big sound. And again, I can go into my modulation section here, and let's say I'm going to take the pitch, the voice spread, and I'm going to set that to the panning of the voices, so we can spread them out in the stereo field. And just over here is, let's see, where are we? I'm sure it's in here somewhere. There we go, panning. And now I'll just add an amount so we can just really thicken out that sound. If I bring that down into the middle, it's straight in the middle, but as I increase the voice spread, so there we go. There's a bit of a look at the TEO-5. The TEO-5 is over at the Algam Echo booth at the front of the building. Algam Echo are our partners here in Italy, and they are responsible for Focusrite, Novation, Sequential, and Oberheim. Also, you can find more information out about all of the products from those brands on algamecho.com. So if you have more interest on this product or any of the products that we've got, please come and have a chat with us over at the booth, or go over to algamecho.com and have a look at their website to give you some more details. Okay, I'll finish now, but thanks very much. And nice to see you. Thank you.